So, I recently saw Thor Ragnarok over the weekend, the third part of Marvel's Thor series, and the latest instalment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it got me thinking about the rise of the shared universe in film over the last decade. Now, in 2017, it definitely feels like the MCU has, in many ways, changed the very way a lot of movies are made and perceived, with many other studios in Hollywood looking to capitalise on this trend, ranging from DC's own attempts at launching the DC Extended Universe, to Universal's attempts to revive the classic monster movie franchise with the Dark Universe, to even Sony's proposed Ghostbusters and Men in Black Jump Street crossover universes, which the less said about, the better. However, the concept of a shared universe actually dates back a lot further than 2008, the year Marvel began their continuity with the releases of Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk, and by exploring the history of this notion, I think we can learn a lot about the future of the cinematic universe and what makes Marvel's so noteworthy. While Marvel was definitely at the forefront for the modern shared universe craze, setting the precedent for how to build an interconnected continuity of films, it would be erroneous to overlook the long history of the serialized method of storytelling in film and the decades of films which serve a larger continuity. In fact, the origins of the shared universe can actually be found in serialized fiction, dating back to the work of Charles Dickens and his Pickwick Papers of 1836, but the idea of serialized storytelling became prevalent in the emerging medium of cinema in the 1920s, with the rise of the film serial. These low-budget, action-packed adventures told their story in multiple installments, using shocking cliffhanger endings to entice viewers back for the next chapter, usually aired the following week. The film serial was a way of telling a story on screen, but in a format more similar to that of a novel, one cohesive story told in individual segments, and found success in a variety of different genres, for example science fiction, crime noir, western and comic books. While many of these serials were self-contained, they demonstrated an important element found in the DNA of the shared universe, the idea of a larger story and the desire to know what comes next. The first real shared universe in the modern sense of the word came in the form of Universal Studios' classic monster movies of the 1930s and 40s, with films such as 1931's Dracula and Frankenstein, which was subsequently followed by The Mummy, The Invisible Man and Bride of Frankenstein, before releasing their first crossover film with 1943's Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, a film which originated as a joke over lunch between studio executives and went on to form the very nucleus of the cinematic universe. However, while crossovers between two popular film series isn't exactly something new, we've seen plenty, be it Freddy vs Jason, King Kong vs Godzilla, or Alien vs Predator, there is something unique and intrinsically different about what Marvel has managed to accomplish. While the aforementioned films managed to bring together two existing franchises, Marvel instead chose to build their universe from the ground up, each singular film like a building block to a much larger story and a much larger world, the culmination of which was 2012's The Avengers. But even after that, the MCU continued to grow exponentially, now including a variety of television series, films set in the far reaches of space, and even ones a lot closer to home. And while it's true that Marvel didn't exactly invent the cinematic universe, it's definitely fair to say the studio revolutionised and brought back the idea to the forefront of the medium. And because of Marvel's success, it's understandable that many other studios have also sought to replicate the formula, but often to a much lesser effect quality-wise. The problem with many other attempts to build a shared universe is that the rival studios fail to invest the necessary time in order to naturally build their world. For instance, let's look at Universal's 2017 release The Mummy, a film planned to kick off their rebooted monster movie series Dark Universe. The reason why the film failed wasn't necessarily down to the fact it was the start of a cinematic universe, but more so about how Universal handled creating the universe, and how this was done at the expense of The Mummy as a film. In many ways, it felt as if Universal were simply making the movie to launch their new series, already developing remakes of other classic films such as Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Creature from the Black Lagoon, while also featuring characters such as Dr. Henry Jekyll, played by Russell Crowe, in The Mummy. And this sort of thinking can be damaging to a series, especially if more thought is put into what happens after the film you're currently making than into the film you're making. Just look at how Sony's Amazing Spider-Man series unfolded, a corporate mandate to build a whole cinematic universe from the success of the 2012 Spider-Man reboot, through a film that spent more time aiming to introduce and set up as many spin-offs as possible than to tell a compelling and cohesive story. Marvel Studios has always been ambitious, but they've rarely been caught planning too far ahead without a careful eye on the present. While their current films are building up to 2018's Infinity War and its untitled 2019 sequel, it's clear the studio also takes priority in making the very best film they can each time they attempt to do so. As Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige explains it, we've always remained consistent saying that the movie we are making comes first. All of the connective tissue, all of that stuff is fun and is going to be very important if you want it to be. If the fans want to look further and find connections, then they're there. But the reason that all the filmmakers are on board is that their movies need to stand on their own. They need to have a fresh vision, a unique tone, and the fact that they can interconnect if you want to follow the breadcrumbs is a bonus. And this became very apparent to me while watching Thor Ragnarok last week. While I'm not personally a huge fan of the previous Thor movies, I found myself thoroughly loving what I was seeing on screen, mostly because Thor is a character I've been watching grow and develop since 2011, supported by other characters I'm invested in, such as Loki and the Hulk. Before focusing on what the events of the film mean for Infinity War, the film's primary motivation is to tell a great self-contained story about Thor, which sounds obvious, but I feel as if it's something that gets lost in the myriad of planning for films 5 years in the future, and the importance of asking what happens now over what happens next.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought about the video today and just any discussions or thoughts you have on what we discussed in the video. I'd be really interested in hearing what you have to say. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. It helps me out a lot and you get to stay up to date with all the new videos I'm making every other Friday. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do at Owen Likes Comics, and if you want to help the channel and support me, you can do so at Patreon, but there is no obligation to do so. That's all from me. I will see you guys next time, and until then, take care and keep reading.